I think Sonics are probably the 2-0 team here.
As far as the Sonics are concerned, they are now locked for the playoffs.
I'm gonna go with BD.
Black Dragons will take their place in the playoffs.
Liquid immediately strikes me as the 2-0 team here.
Liquid confirmed for playoffs.
I think it'll be TSM.
The victory here for TSM clinches their spot.
I just really don't have a reason to discount W7M or BDS.
W7M qualifies for the playoffs. BDS
They just found out.
just found out.
It should be FaZe and Wolves.
FaZe up Brazil.
Wolves will be going into the playoffs.
So yeah, I got every prediction right. That's never happened before. I don't know what to do now. I didn't just get every team correct. I got 6 out of 8 teams seeding correct if you go by the graphic that I put on Twitter. I don't know if that means this was the most predictable group stage ever. I'm really just that good, or the curse is finally starting to wear off. But to be fair, kudos to everybody for making the second 2 days of groups a roller coaster. Like, Cyclops, Heroic, and SSG could all be in playoffs right now if it wasn't for just a couple more rounds that went in their favor. And I'm not even talking a lot. Like, sometimes it was a matter of like 2. It was honestly one of the better group stages I think we've seen for a major. I think Mexico is probably still one of the best group stages ever, but Jönköping was legitimately right there behind it. Every team followed the 2-0 rule. BDS, Liquid, TSM, not you, Wolves, W7M, like, they all made it to playoffs. Like, well done, everyone. Fast starts really do get you to where you need to go. And for W7M, they got that 2-0 start and then simply never let off the gas. They have now completed the first ever 18-point undefeated group stage in major history. And they did it in the group of death, no less. Absolutely ridiculous scenes, and I think they're going to win the whole event. That's all from me. Be sure to check out my YouTube. No, I'm going to explain more in a second, but before we get to the rest of the predictions, we need to talk about the playoff bracket first. It's not good. The chances of playoffs only featuring intranational playoffs was always there. Like, it was always going to be a thing, but it was an astronomically low number. It's not the bracket that I wanted, but it does make total sense how we got here. I'm just shocked that we did. This demon bracket has every Brazilian team on one side of it against one another, which also happens to be a carbon copy of the Copa Elite Stage 3 semifinals, meaning they're all going to eliminate each other and also guarantee that one Brazilian team is going to the grand final. The other side of the bracket will feature either a European or an American team in the grand final, and as much as I do like the prospect of a cross-region grand final, I would have preferred we got there the old-fashioned way and not by this. And in spite Twitter and Reddit being in an absolute uproar over the past couple of hours about the way that this draw went, I think Joe Bro probably said it best. This is the nature of random draws. The system for generating the matchups is not bad by any means. This is just the theoretical extreme of the system, and somehow it happened. I can't believe we got here in the first place, but we have. And it's time to face reality. It's time to call one of the toughest and dumbest brackets that I've ever seen. The first quarterfinal is the NA Gauntlet, Sonics versus TSM. And Joe Bro might be really happy about that Twitter shout out from earlier, so I'm going to make him even happier. And I'm going to pick his guys to take it. Trying to find a way to differentiate the two of them is already difficult, but this is what I came up with. Both teams are super familiar with each other. They're both objective-oriented. They both have a good depth of map pool. And in a best-of-3 scenario, that makes it sound like it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out brawl that probably isn't going to end until overtime on map 3. The safe pick for a lot of people might be TSM, because they survived arguably a tougher group and probably shouldn't be counted out in best-of-3s, but the Sonics are coming into this as the #1 seed in a way more unpredictable group where they dominated. It took them a game to get their bearings, but then they won 5 straight and nobody else had any idea how the rest of that group was going to shake out. Plus, at this major, they've so far proven to be a much better attacking team than TSM, and both teams did make roster moves before stage 3, but SQ only has 1 LAN rookie, whereas both of TSM's pickups are brand spanking new to playing in front of a crowd. There might not be a lot of reasons to pick the Sonics to win this game, but there's enough to make it work if you dig hard enough. Honestly, if you're SQ, just don't go to bank, and I think you're going to do fine. The second quarterfinal is the French Civil War, BDS versus Wolves. It feels good knowing after this game there will be 5 less French players in our lobbies. Thank you, Intero, for confirming that. Honestly, I could use the same criteria as the first game to sort out a winner, or I could just go with my gut. Wolves. Sorry, Helby, this is happening. To be fair, Wolves have been making progress toward this for a while, and I think it's finally time they make it to a semifinal. They rank higher than BDS on both attack and defense in groups, even if it was by a super marginal amount. Bibu should not be doing what he's doing and going that nasty on Thermite, and I'm not about to overlook Shinka finally waking everybody up to what he can do on an international stage. My only real concern is that their group was probably the most predictable one to call, even if they traded games with FaZe, and both Direwolves and Mirage did give them fits at certain points. If you factor that in, then it makes BDS's stats in the group of death look a lot more acceptable. If you just consider that competition in Group B was a lot harder than competition in Group D for the most part, then maybe it balances each other out. But at this point, I've already made the pick. I'm sticking with it, and I'm not about to turn back now. Third quarterfinal is Black Dragons v W7M, aka Copa Elite 6 Semifinal Part 1. And I think that this one goes the exact same way that that series did. W7M picks it up. This one was probably the easiest of the semifinals to call because BD getting to playoffs was already an upset prediction anyway, and it's one that very nearly didn't happen in reality when it was all said and done because Cyclops were still putting up a fight at the end. So I don't think that Black Dragons were going to get out of quarters regardless of their opponent, but it being W7M just seals it. This honestly doesn't really need much explanation, but winning every single game of the group stage in regulation and in varying ways from pure domination to comebacks says all you need to know about how cracked this team is at Siege at the moment. And the last quarterfinal, Liquid against FaZe. FaZe is usually a super hot team in Sweden. Like, they won the major a year ago. They were 3rd place at SI in Stockholm this year. But Liquid seemed unstoppable for groups and only dropped one game that by the time it happened, it didn't even matter anymore. Everybody on the team was rated a 1.0 or higher. Only Lagonis didn't have a positive KD, which for him is acceptable. And I just feel like as hungry as FaZe are, Liquid had their number all 3 times they played in Stage 3, and 2 of them were the Copa Elite best of 3s. Like, there's nothing wrong with FaZe per se, but the turnaround Liquid's been able to put together is simply too potent to ignore. And this thing sucks because it means FaZe had to be the first team to get crushed under that boot. I hate that this is a quarterfinal, but Liquid, yeah, Liquid. All of this would then make the first semifinal Sonics versus Wolves. This is actually super unknown territory for both teams. Sonics made top 6 at SI, but the roster was slightly different, and the farthest that Wolves have been able to go was the quarterfinals of Berlin, and they didn't even win a map. Actually, the Sonics didn't win a map during that stage appearance at SI, so I honestly don't know the way this one would swing. A lot of this would obviously come down to the way that their quarterfinal games would go, but since we're doing this prediction now for the sake of content, they were both dead even on attack and defense in groups, and they both have a lot of players who were super consistent over that same time frame and were popping off left and right. But the Sonics finally have a backline that's able to provide consistent support to their fraggers, and Rexon and Grixon have not disappointed at all since this thing began. I think they're going to do it. I think Sonics are going to go to a grand final. But I really don't think it matters who wins that game because the winner of Liquid W7M is going to win the entire major. Of these two, it doesn't matter. They're taking the whole thing home. My heart wants it to be Liquid because of all of the LATAM teams yet to raise a major trophy. They're absolutely at the top of the list. And Lagonis getting his 2nd major trophy and becoming only the 2nd player to do so does have a nice ring to it. But for prediction's sake, I'm still going to go with W7M because they simply look that unstoppable, and they also beat Liquid every single time they faced off in Stage 3. It's going to be a bloodbath, but it's going to send the best team available to the grand finals. And whoever that is, they're going to win that too. Even if it wasn't the Sonics going to the grand finals, if it was TSM, Wolves, or BDS, it would be really stupid to bet against the momentum that W7M have built for themselves, and it would be a huge shocker to the Siege world, or a relief, depending on who you ask, if they're unable to take this thing home. No matter what happens, I think every major gets won by a different region this year. And since Brazil is quite literally guaranteed to have a grand finals team, it's just a matter of which one of them goes the distance. And for me, that's W7M. Now let's see if the curse actually decides to come to play or not. If it didn't happen in groups, that means it's happening somewhere in playoffs. I'm not going to say anything else or add any more context to that. Just be aware that it's coming. That is all from me. Big thanks to everybody who showed up for the co-streams for the past couple of days. It's been nice to get the Twitch channel revitalized again, and we will be doing it for the playoffs for all of the games over this weekend, so please make sure you're over there and following it so you don't miss any of that. You can come get your drops. And if you celebrate it, this video is coming out on Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving if you're an American and nobody else because Canada's already had theirs, blah, blah, blah. I'll see you this weekend for the playoffs. Let me know what your predictions are down in the comments, and I'll see you later. Peace.